friends, happy Monday. Today we will be reading chapter 4 of Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers from the Adventures of the Bailey School Kids series. But before we get started, we have to say our Kids on Course motto, so let's go ahead and repeat after me. I am smart. I believe in myself. I am a great kid. I have courage. I deserve to learn. Today is going to be awesome. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and go over our questions from Friday. So on Friday I asked you, why were Eddie's actions towards Carrie wrong? And Eddie's actions towards Carrie were wrong because Eddie, in a sense, was kind of bullying Carrie, and he has throughout the book, and those things are not okay, and she was just trying to be really nice to him. So that's why his actions were wrong, because they weren't very nice. And then the other question was, what signs show that Carrie likes Eddie? And we have a couple signs. So she talked to him at lunch after she had the heart pinned on her by Mrs. Rosenblum. And then she wanted to do his help him with his homework and buy him a new notebook after she ripped it. And she's kind of following him around. And also, she has this kind of love-struck look in her eyes. So it really seems like Carrie likes Eddie. My dog is being kind of loud right now. So I have two questions for us before we get started. Question 1, who is Billy? And question 2, why does Eddie think Mrs. Rosenblum is making people lovesick? And that is actually the title of this chapter, Lovesick. For the first time in his life, Eddie kept his eyes on his schoolwork. He didn't actually do much of it, but he kept his eyes on his paper anyway. He didn't want to look up and catch Carrie staring at him. That's what had happened in the middle of the science experience. She'd smiled and winked at him. Then she blew him a kiss. Eddie had spilled an entire test tube of salt water in his lap. Then Howie made kissing noises. "Quit it," Eddie warned, "or I'll smack you right across the face." By lunchtime, Eddie was ready to leave school and Bailey City too. Melody grabbed his shoulder. "Looks like you've fallen in love with the smartest girl in the class," she teased. "She must not be that smart," Howie interrupted. "Not if she likes Eddie." "There's something very fishy about it." "That's enough," Eddie sputtered. "I'll say," Melody laughed. "It's fishy that anybody would bring you red roses and candy kisses." That was another reason why we think that she likes him. Liza nodded. "All you deserve are thorns and spinach." Eddie turned his back on his friends and hurried to lunch. The whole school had turned against him. Everyone, that is, except Carrie. And that was even worse. Red and pink hearts were still all over the cafeteria. Eddie had already had his fill of Valentine's Day nonsense. He grabbed his tray of a heart-shaped sandwich, a pink frosted cupcake, and cherry-flavored juice and headed for the corner table. He didn't speak when Liza, Howie, and Melody sat down. Instead, he kept his eye on the new cook. There was something about her that bothered him. And then there is a picture, so you can see everybody sitting down for lunch. And Eddie's kind of eyeing what we think is Mrs. Rosenblum. He watched her smile and hand out trays of pink and red goop. But Eddie stopped chewing his heart-shaped sandwich when sorry, the question will be who is Ben, not Billy. So who is Ben? Sorry, friends. He watched her smile and hand out trays of pink and red goop. But Eddie stopped chewing his heart-shaped sandwich when Ben came through the line. Ben was the biggest bully in 4th grade. Eddie got some of his best ideas from watching Ben. Eddie couldn't wait to see how Ben handled the new cook. "Why so grumpy?" Mrs. Rosenblum put her hands on her wide waist and laughed. "You need something to sweeten your insides." Then she pulled a huge cookie from off a top shelf. It was smothered in icing and little pieces of red candy. Eddie licked his lips as Ben wolfed down the cookie. With his hands full, Ben couldn't stop Mrs. Rosenblum from pinning a heart button on his shirt. "That ought to do the trick," Mrs. Rosenblum said as Ben walked away, still chomping on the cookie. Eddie's eyes widened when he saw the button. It was identical to Carrie's. Eddie smiled when Ben stopped beside Isabel Hart. Look, Eddie said to his friends. Ben's going to let Prissy Issy have it. The four kids watched, but Ben didn't spit or burp or tease Izzy. Instead, he sat down beside her and shared his cookie. And you can see that is Ben. Eddie drummed his fingers on the table. Something was wrong, really wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it, and then it came to him. He slapped the table with his hands, sending spoons and forks clattering to the floor. I've got it, he blurted. Got what? Melody asked. The chicken pox? Eddie ignored Melody. I've got the answer to everything. Great, Howie said. Then you can take my science test for me. No, Eddie snapped. I know why Carrie and Ben are acting like lovesick slugs. Why? Liza asked. Eddie looked at his friends and kept his voice low. Everything was normal until yesterday. Nothing is ever normal at Bailey Elementary, Melody interrupted. Eddie nodded. But until then, Carrie and Ben were the same old pests. What are you getting at? Howie asked. It's the work of Mrs. Rosenblum, Eddie explained. She's invaded Bailey Elementary and she's armed with love potions. That is all I have for you. So I will remind you of our questions before we go. Question number 1. It is who is Ben, not who is Billy. I am sorry about that mix-up, friends. So who is Ben? In question 2, why does Eddie think Mrs. Rosenblum is making people lovesick? That is all I have for you. I will see you on Friday. Have a good week, everybody. Bye.